Back in 2011, Wizards of the Coast released Innistrad, and after that, Dark Ascension and Avacyn Restored. Back then, we spent 3 sets on one plane, and that was called a block. This block has been one of Magic's most iconic blocks ever. Cards like Invisible Stalker with Butcher's Cleaver led to insanely swingy limited games. Snapcaster Mage became the backbone for blue decks in Modern and Legacy. Delver of Secrets is still a real threat in Legacy today. Liliana the Veil was also instrumental in cementing black-green midrange as the midrange colors for a long time. The impact Innistrad block had on competitive formats is massive, and players really loved it. I didn't start playing until 2 years later, and still heard a lot about Innistrad. And with the remastered set coming out, I wanted to look back on original Innistrad block and think about its impact on casual Commander. So in this video, I want to ask the question, how fun was Innistrad? But first, if you want to buy any cards from this block, consider going to Cool Stuff Inc. and using my code TTM. It helps you with a discount and helps me by supporting the channel. Thanks to Cool Stuff Inc. for sponsoring the video. Let's begin with the set's commanders. Since this is pre-EDH boom, there are only 11 legendary creatures from the block. Honestly, it's more like 10 since Gristlebrand is banned, and for good reason, by the way. Honestly, this demon wouldn't even be that bad in the command zone since he costs 8 mana. The real scary part is if you were allowed Gristlebrand in the 99. Then you could reanimate him on turn 1, letting you draw 35 cards in one go. And if you're familiar with cards like Ad Nauseam and CDH, you know that drawing 30 plus cards can easily convert to a win. Of these leftover commanders, I think all of them are quite good, but I wanted to highlight a few of my favorites. Geist is a very interesting commander. You can go Voltron, you can go Token Tribal using doublers to make more angels, or even stuff like Sundial of the Infinite to keep the angels around. The original Olivia is such a fun, flavorful card. She turns other dudes into vampires and charms them to her side. As a vampire commander, she isn't too bad, but honestly, I kind of like her as a control commander for the ability to just slowly take over the game once you get to the later portions of it. Lastly, Grim. I feel like most people assume this is a zombie commander, but no, this card doesn't actually reference zombies at all. It's just a sacrifice and aristocrats card, and also a big beater in blue. Grim lets you make great use of blue stuff like Reef Worm and other neat Dimir cards that don't really show up in other Dimir decks. Wait, I just realized there's only 21 decks on EDH Rec that are playing Reef Worm in Grim? That's kind of crazy. This is like one of the perfect places to play this card. It's kind of cool. Alright, continuing on. Looking at the non-commanders, I think Innistrad block is home to a lot of great cards that see heavy EDH play. Blasphemous Act, Blood Artist, Craterhoof. I mean, these are some of the best in class at what they do and are real staples. And there's more. Faithless Looting, Cavern of Souls, Ghostly Flicker, Mentor of the Meek, Laboratory Maniac. And I know I just said Cavern of Souls, but the other utility lands from this block are all pretty good too. There's a surprising amount of important cards in this block that see serious play in EDH. Honestly, more than any other block out there. Even lesser played ones like Primal Surge or Curse of Misfortune really make their own deck archetypes, and small utility things like Ancient Grudge are still plenty playable. While editing this, I realized Ancient Grudge is not originally from Innistrad. There's a Time Spiral one. I don't know why, but I associated this card so much with Innistrad, I guess because of the art and flavor text and the meme around it. So pretend I said Uvenwald Tracker as an example of good utility that's still playable today. This block has a lot of things like Wolves and Curses that were never that good in 60 card formats. I know Wolves showed up a bit in Standard, and I know there was that mono black Curses deck in Legacy, but generally speaking, they weren't very good in 60 card formats. But those types of cards are exactly what casual EDH players want. Cool cards you can't use elsewhere because they're a bit too clunky or a bit too slow. I feel like this is partially why the set is remembered so fondly. Army of the Damned was never going to be modern playable, but man, is it a cool card. It's fun to put a big pile of zombies into play off of one card. And even though many of these are powerful cards in the set, they all have some sort of restriction or deck building requirement to use them. I mean, even Craterhoof. It's a common example of an easy win condition, but it does require you to be in a creature heavy deck. Not that it's a difficult requirement to be met, but still. Blood Artist is a really strong card in a deck that can make use of the effect. In later sets, cards like Expropriate or Torment of Hailfire, which are also considered easy win cons, are strong almost regardless of what deck they're in. And for Innistrad block, other than Blasphemous Act or removal spells like that, I really can't think of many examples of truly generically powerful cards. They're all good synergy pieces. And recently I've been thinking a lot about older sets and older commanders, and the changes in Magic's philosophy, and how the focus on commander has affected the format. I think it's very interesting that this pre-EDH block is full of popular cards and commanders that are worth playing still today. Cards like Avacyn being at 8 mana, things like Grim having an actual downside you have to build around, and a lot of cards that just do one thing. Many legendary creatures these days do a lot. They give synergy and support that synergy as well. But nothing printed in this era is like that. Mikaeus the Unhallowed does not draw you into your non-humans, doesn't make himself bigger, doesn't have a sack outlet tied to him. He just says if you have non-humans, you get an extra thing. It's up to you to make use of that, to have your own sack outlets and your own +1/+1 counter synergy pieces. I think this makes for fun commander deck building, and I hope we get more of it. This video was just a quick thought exercise about how these old cards impact casual EDH. I'm not going to be talking about price too much here, or if the new remastered set is worth buying. That will probably be a bonus video on Patreon later. And I don't want to give Innistrad a score out of 10, since fun is pretty subjective. But if you personally want to tell me how fun you think this block was out of 10, let me know in the comments below. I really am curious. Overall, I think revisiting this old block made me really appreciate synergy. Most of the important cards from the set are key pieces within the context of their deck. And looking at cards like Creeping Renaissance or Elbrus the Binding Blade, I don't think, wow, that goes in all my green decks or all my black decks. But rather I think about, can I make use of this in my Abzan list? Is getting back all my cycling lands in one go worth it? Or can I use the Blade with Sidar to sneak in an attacker and flip it easily? It leads me to brew and think about my current decks, which is a good sign for the fun of EDH. I would say Original Innistrad is overall an excellent set for casual commander. It has powerful staples that work well in the right deck, but are not generically infinitely scalable and powerful. There's also a lot of hidden gems here. Mechanics like Flashback, Morbid, Undying work well with many other mechanics, so your commander from a different graveyard-oriented set can probably get value from some of these old Innistrad cards. I would seriously encourage you to boot up Skyfall and search through some of the cards from Original Innistrad block, and I'm certain you're going to find some new adds for your commander decks. Thank you so very much for watching. What did you think about this little old set retrospective? Would you like to see more of these? Was it interesting? I'm trying out some new stuff, so let me know if this is something you would want to see made into a series where I review other old blocks. Also, very special thanks to my patrons who make these videos possible. If you want to join the Patreon and be in the credits, check out the link below. Alright, I feel like I gotta talk about Thalia because someone's gonna comment about it. The card's cool and iconic and classic, but it's just not great for casual commander. Maybe in the 99 of a Hate Bears deck, but not really great as a commander.